I started listening to drum and bass as a teenager in the 90s, and I remember being in awe of some of the uses and abuses of extreme time stretching, particularly on vocals, using hardware samplers. It wasn't for years that I could actually afford a hardware sampler of my own, let alone with one which had a time stretching algorithm, and nothing sounded to me quite like the sort of effect achievable using the Akai S3000 sampler. This was an extreme, highly artificial sort of cyborg stretched tone with an amazing granularized sound, and it came to define entire subgenres of drum and bass and garage music. Then, ironically, when I first started playing around in live, it took me years to work out how to achieve a similar granular lo-fi machine-like sound, simply because live presets in warp mode are generally really good. Generally, to preserve the audio integrity of something like a vocal, we can set our warp mode to tones, and even with extreme warping, maintain a natural sound. So then how can we create a more weird artifacts and obvious old school sounding effects, particularly on a vocal? Well, here's a couple of basic ideas. Firstly, I'll make sure that my vocal has, of course, its warp mode turned on. Secondly, I'll change the segment BPM. To double or half it, it's as simple as clicking on one of these two buttons, and I'm going to double it. I want to make sure my warp mode is set to beats now, because this is where the fun begins. Instead of selecting my warp resolution to preserve natural transients of the sound, I can immediately start getting a more cut up or stretched sound by selecting different transient values. Preserving full bar or half bar transients might be a little clunky unless you want to create an extreme vocal cut up effect, but if I select 30-second note divisions, things are sounding familiar and vintage almost immediately. Next, I can start accentuating a really granular feel by selecting my transient loop mode to off, or the first option here. And then select my transient envelope value to something really small. This creates an instant mini gating or granular effect. It's even more obvious though when the envelope value is low and we preserve only 8th or 16th notes. If we select transient loop mode to back and forth, we can also generate another very unique time stretching kind of sound where the transients are clearly looping backwards and forwards. Voila, instant time stretching abuse in a rainbow of different colors. This effect works super well on bass parts too, to generate weird artifacts, beating sounds, or to create a subtle or extreme rhythmic effect in a melodic part. And the beauty of it is it's completely non-destructive. So our original audio file remains intact.
Say